I want to welcome everyone here today. I'm Nate Persley. I'm a law professor at Stanford, but the reason I'm here is I've been appointed to help draw the remedial plan following the courts, following the settlement and consent decree entered into by the city with the plaintiffs. I'm in addition to being a law professor, I'm also a political scientist, but most relevantly for this process, I've drawn hundreds of redistricting plans and was particularly interested in the challenges that you all face in Lowell, as well as the opportunity. And I think it's been a remarkable process getting to know both the plaintiffs and the city officials in this, as well as to get some input from the public, which is what we are here for today, to get some initial views on the plan that is sort of a framework for thinking about redistricting in Lowell. I think I'll call on people as necessary, but I think Carrie Jennis, you want to maybe do some either introductions of yourself and maybe the plaintiffs, and then we can get going.
Sure. As I said, I'm the first assistant city solicitor, so I represent the city of Lowell in all sorts of matters and have been helping the city finalize this case and get the district maps up and running, and working with Dr. Pursley on trying to come up with a map to have the enact the consent decree that was agreed to in the litigation. Oren Selstrom is here representing the plaintiffs, and he wanted to say a few words on their behalf. So I'm muting him now. We're trying to.
Great, and thank you, Dr. Pursley. Good evening, everyone. My name is Oren Selstrom. I'm the litigation director of Lawyers for Civil Rights, and along with the law firm of Ropes and Gray, we've had the honor and the privilege of representing the plaintiffs in the voting rights lawsuit that have led to the changes that we're discussing this evening. And from the very start of the litigation, one of the most important things that plaintiffs wanted to emphasize was to make sure that Lowell's residents, and in particular its communities of color, had the opportunity to weigh in on changes that would be made to the city's electoral system. And that's why when we settled the case with the city, we had the process where the voters were allowed to weigh in at the ballot box about which of the many different remedies the city residents preferred. And that once it became clear that a district-based system is the way that residents wanted to go, that this very open and inclusive process for drawing district lines would take place. Plaintiffs want to thank you, Dr. Pursley, for your work on this phase of the settlement. I would say of all of the issues that plaintiffs and defendants had to come to agreement on in this lawsuit, your selection as the independent expert was probably the very easiest. It was clear to all of us from the outset that your expertise in this area is broad and deep. And we have continued to appreciate your openness in this process and your receptivity to feedback that has been given to you. As you know, plaintiffs have submitted a proposed community map that we submitted through the city's online portal, and I know that you have received feedback from the city and from other residents as well already. For the community map that plaintiffs submitted, our goal was to get the broadest possible feedback that we could, particularly from communities of color in Lowell. And we did that in partnership with some key local agencies, including the Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association, the Lowell Alliance, and the Latinx Community Center for Empowerment. It was also very important for us to engage not only Latino and Asian residents, but the Black community and other communities of color as well. We were grateful that many leaders from those communities, including in particular Stacey Thompson and Mona Tyree, stepped up to the plate to assist us with that effort. Together, our coalition held numerous multilingual education sessions throughout the summer and fall. Through online surveys, large group meetings, and smaller focus groups, we gathered as much information as we could in order to put into our community map where the community thought district lines should be drawn. We were extremely pleased to see that many of the key elements that we put into our community map are reflected in your draft map. From our perspective, your map balances competing interests well. It preserves existing neighborhoods and follows natural dividing lines where possible. It keeps communities of interest together, and of course, it meets the requirements of the consent decree, which are designed to provide equal voting opportunity to communities of color. We look forward to hearing the feedback you will receive this evening and to further revisions to your map, including after Census 2020 data is released. For now, we just wanted to say thank you for the care and attention you've paid to this process and for this excellent starting point that so clearly considers community feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carrie, is there anything else from the city that we need to hear before we get started?
Not on my account. I agree with everything that Oren had to say about, we've been really pleased working with Dr. Pursley and the plaintiffs in this process to try to come up with something that's fair for everyone in the city. I know we have a couple of city councilors on the Zoom, so I just wanted to ask if any of them wanted to say a few words before we start, if you want to use the raise hand function, or I think you can unmute yourself, but I'm not sure.
Well, I see no hands yet, but if they would like to, they should chime in. The way I think where we are now is that I like to walk through the map with people to give people a sense of what the considerations are in redistricting in Lowell in general, as well as in this map in particular. Before I get into the specifics though and share my screen and talk a little bit about this, let me just give a little overview from the standpoint of someone who does a lot of redistricting. I want to echo, let me say a little bit about how what's happening in Lowell is unique and hopefully in many ways could be a model for the country. The fact that the community has been coming together, that you have the plaintiffs and the city really wrestling in a collaborative way on how to draw districts. The first time you've had to do this to draw districts for city council really is redistricting at its finest. Those of us who work in this field see some of the worst aspects of American politics play out time and again, and to see the collaborative spirit that we've seen here. When you have what are real political, community, sociological considerations at play is really quite impressive, and it's in that spirit that I think everybody was working on this map and will work in the coming months. Apropos of that, for those who haven't been a part of a redistricting process before, one of the key constraints that you need to keep in mind is that the Constitution requires that there be relatively equal numbers of people between each district. I mentioned that somewhat obvious point about one person, one vote to suggest, to impress upon you the following, which is that not every community gets its own district, and some communities by necessity, by law, end up being split because they're required to do so. And there are an infinite number of plans that can be drawn, combining different groups together. But I want to, in talking about the plan, I want to sort of explain what the principles are that guide them. In addition to the one person, one vote rule, right, that's required by the Constitution, we also have the rules that come out in this particular case of the consent decree and the requirements under the Voting Rights Act to make sure that different communities are not disadvantaged on the basis of race or language minority status. And so that often has led, and led in this case, to the court requiring the creation of 2 majority-minority districts. And we can go through, and in the public disclosure of the plans, you can see the demographic makeup of every district. I will say one thing that is interesting about Lowell is that, and for that matter, the plaintiffs' various proposals, is that in Lowell, unlike many other places in the country, you can draw really compact, coherent majority-minority districts such that it's not even, sort of running some of the constitutional risks that one runs in other parts of the country. And so now what I'll do is I'll walk through the map and I'll sort of explain to you the factors that influence the drawing of lines in Lowell. Some of these factors I think would influence any map that we're drawn, and some I think are particularly salient here. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna show you a little bit about how a redistricting plan is constructed, and I'm showing you a particular program that I use called Maptitude for Redistricting, which is actually one that that company is not too far from Lowell, right outside of it's in Newton, Mass. All right, I hope you all can see this map on the screen. Carrie, can you nod just to make sure that if you can see it? Okay, great. Right now, I'm just showing you what basically looks like paint splattered on the outlines of Lowell. This is the map that you all have seen. And I will add greater detail to it as we zoom in. But I just want to give a sense of how one can think about redistricting in Lowell, and then also what the constraints are. So you'll note that if you think about the neighborhoods in Lowell that themselves have too many people for one district, Centralville and Pawtucketville and the Highlands and Acre all are depending on how we define how big those neighborhoods are, they're all larger than any given district. Whereas most of the other neighborhoods, right, are going to have to be combined with other districts. In addition, I've highlighted here the wards and precincts that are in Lowell, and for election administration reasons, it's often important to keep those together. I will note, since we did get some public feedback on the relationship of wards and precincts to the plan, that when you do a local redistricting like this, it inevitably, because of the legal requirement of one person, one vote, will lead to a breaking up of these precincts, just because they don't fit perfectly within the number of people is not equal between precincts in order to craft districts together. And so pursuant to in response to the question that we received publicly about whether these would need to be redrawn, that's an election administration question. And I'll just say that it depends on the election administration authority as to whether you would redraw precincts after a plan like this. Often cities do not redraw precincts. They simply change the types of ballots that are given in any given polling place in a district. So that's what I've highlighted on the screen. But you'll notice Pawtucketville, Centralville, Lower Highland, or the Highlands, all at Acre, all neighborhoods that are large, but sort of greater than a district. And so the plan, for the most part, tries to keep neighborhoods together, though reasonable people will disagree, and I know many here will, as to which neighborhoods, when you have a district which has multiple neighborhoods in it, which should be stitched together. Okay, but you'll note that those 3 and actually 4 districts, right, each have generally follow, are included in the neighborhood, so that you have Pawtucketville has a district, Centralville, Highlands, and the like. The 2 majority-minority districts are District 7 and District 6. District 7 in Acre, 6 in the Lower Highlands, but again, these are quite compact districts, and that would be drawn pursuant to the consent decree, or actually even naturally, sort of generally obey the neighborhood divisions. District 5 includes most of what's often called the Sacred Heart District, and then parts and most of South Lowell. District 3 has Belvedere, parts of what are South Lowell, and Lower Belvedere. District 4 is the type of district that always gives people anxiety in looking at redistricting plans, because you'll notice that it crosses the river, right, and it includes many different types of communities, and stitches them together. No matter what you do in redistricting Lowell, you will end up with something like this. And one of the most important questions to ask when you are doing redistricting in a place like Lowell is, which district crosses the river and where do you cross the river? Okay. And so the decision to keep a district, one district in Centralville, one district in Pawtucketville, then crossing the river at this sort of entry point is what then gives this district the particular shape that it does, right? There would be other options, and there were other options that I considered, for example, of crossing the bridge over here, taking Belvedere, combining with parts of Centralville. But then that would, of course, split Centralville, and then you'd have the, say, District 2 going in this direction. And so in the comments from the City Council, and well as many others, the District 4 is often the one that gives people the most concern. But it is, it is a contiguous district that is relatively compact, all things considered, that takes in the various communities that are not encompassed by, say, Sacred Heart and Lowell, Belvedere and Lower Belvedere, Pawtucketville, Centralville, Upper Highlands, Lower Highlands, and Acre. Okay, and so it's mainly defined by the having most of downtown in it. Now let me talk about going forward, what the process may look like. This is what I would call a very tight redistricting map, and I was careful in the public revelation of this to describe it as a framework for redistricting, because there will be changes that inevitably have to be made once we get the new census data. And so I want to just tell you the kinds of changes that I have in mind if the shift in population warrants it. I think it is like, for example, there were some comments that we received about how South Lowell is split here. In the event that District 3 has enough population, the existing District 3, to then unite South Lowell, that is something that I will try to do. District 6, it is possible with the new census will be underpopulated, and if it is, then I would probably move it more closer to the highway. Actually, I'll just show you what the highway would look like here. Moving 6 east, same with 8, to try to move eastward. In addition, I think it's likely that Pawtucketville has had higher relative rates of growth than other parts of the city. And so District 4 may end up going a little bit farther west here as well. But all of these types of changes, and I mentioned them now, are contingent on the feedback that I'm going to get from you today, as well as what is revealed by the new census. And we really don't know what the we don't know with precision what the numbers are going to be. Right now, these districts are, per the Constitution, plus or minus 5% from each other, right? So that there's, as you can see from the numbers, no district has more than 5% more than another district, or from the ideal population of the district. It is the plan as drawn here. It does comply with the law. It complies with the consent decree. But nevertheless, those are the requirements. And now what I'd like to do is get your feedback on changes or proposals that maybe, or for that matter, praise that you may have of the plan, keeping in mind that every change leads to other changes, because you cannot just change one line. Usually, you can't just plop your ideal district inside a redistricting map and then expect everything else to shift around. So if something's got to give if one change is made in order to accommodate it. So with that, why don't I open it up? We'll use the raised hand feature, and those who would like to speak, I'll just call on you and I will unmute you. I don't see anyone. Yep, there we go. Sally Coulter was first.
I guess I'm in your District 4, and it seems like the most catch-as-catch-can district. You've got back central downtown and all the way up through, what is that, part of Centralville. it just, it's not, almost all the others have a sort of an integrity to them and a make sense. This one really doesn't. I wonder if there's a way to go east-west a little bit on some of that. And for the downtown part, if you were going from back central, the closest or the most, if you had to go across the river, it would probably be up Bridge Street. Maybe. I have a problem with it. It also, you know, currently we have the wards, downtown is Ward 2 going west. I guess I have a question about how voting would happen. It's going to be different.
Right. And as I said, there has to be some traversal of the river, right? And so the question is whether it goes in that direction, or if it were to go, you know, sort of more into Centralville, and then have a kind of almost moon-shaped district from Centralville going around that traversal. And so, you know, I'm eager to get people's proposals on how one might make changes to this, if so. And I think everybody involved, I'll say this is modeled on what the plaintiffs had put forward in their original proposal. And so, and then based off the discussions with the city council, many of whom raised these concerns, it was just a real challenge to figure out how else this could be done. What I'll say is that, you know, if by some miracle Pawtucketville and Centralville are underpopulated, then we can solve this problem by trying to take those the area across the river and put them in to what are District 1 and District 2. But for now, this was the, you know, the basic challenge is to, and you know, let me just share my screen again. That, right, as we zoom in, and I'll highlight the streets. Right, so one other option, right, would be to have District 4 take in population here, as I said, and then District 2 goes in a like half moon direction going around like this. But that then, you know, what you pay for greater contiguity or compactness here, you make up, it ends up creating this district, which will end up being a little bit more misshapen. So those are many of the trade-offs there. Anjali Falberg, hold on. Hi.
Thank you for this presentation. I was wondering if you could, I don't know if you have a map of like where different ethnic and racial communities are located, and if it would be possible to overlay the voting district with that. And I was wondering if you could speak to how this new map addresses the overarching goal of the plaintiffs, which was to increase the likelihood that communities of color would be able to actually elect representatives that they want in.
Good questions. Let me share the screen again. I can't on the fly overlay the populations, but I'll describe it for you so you can see. Just to give you the percentages in the district so you can see, and this is going to be a little, these are fancy Department of Justice characterizations the way it is, but I'll try to show you what these numbers mean. And they were on the PowerPoint presentation that was made public. So as I was saying, these are the number, according to the 2010 census, these are the numbers of people in each one of these districts. All right, let me just so people can see. What we're talking about here. So you'll see that no district has more than 635 people, more or less, than what would be the ideal population of a district. So each district needs roughly 13,315 people in it. And that, so plus or minus 635 is what we have come up with. You'll notice, and this is where we use the American Community Survey data to estimate the citizen voting age population of a district. And so what I'll describe here, if you can see, is that District 6 is, according to the citizen voting age population, the voting age population is roughly 50% Asian. The citizen voting age population is roughly 46.5% Asian, and another 12%, almost 13% Latino citizen voting age population. District 7, you'll see, is roughly 26% Asian citizen voting age population, and 26% Hispanic citizen voting age population. That is what gets you. That is why this complies with the consent decree. I will also add that the plaintiffs, these are exactly the majority minority districts that the plaintiffs had submitted. Those are the precise boundaries. And then there are other districts in which there are, of course, substantial Asian and Latino percentages. So you'll note that, if you just look at the white citizen voting age population of the districts, you'll see that District 5 is 53.9% white citizen voting age population, right? And some of the others are really, between in the high 50s, low 60s. In general, when you talk about the racial makeup of the districts, obviously the large Asian American community in District 6, also in District 7, right? That's where you get roughly 26%, but also joined with a Latino community up here. There are also, if you go in Lower Belvedere and if you go in southeastern Centralville, that you'll end up having, there's substantial Latino populations there as well. And in downtown, of course. Yeah. Okay, now let me stop the share and let's go to Paul is it Paul Rothayem?
Yes, this is, I'm looking at your number and I live in the District 7.
Okay.
And I think you touch on a little bit about the District 6. You have the high population of Asian.
Right.
But then if you look at the Latino population in District 6, it's a lot lower than in District 7. District 7 is almost like 50-50 of Latino and then Asian. In your district, is it possible to, to give some of the Latino population into District 6, that because we so close together, so this way the population between Latino, Asian in the 6 and 7 will be, almost, balance it out.
So let me just speak as a kind of voting rights lawyer to give you a sense of how many people think about this. The first is that it's often not the case that you want that communities would like to have each district be a kind of even slice of the aggregate demographic makeup. And what I mean by that is that sometimes communities would like to be more represented. They would prefer, say in the context of the District 7, which is 26.3% Latino voting age population, which is roughly even with the Asian population, as opposed to dropping this district, let's say, to under 20%, so that then District 6 would be, closer to 20%, and so then you'd have plurality Asian populations in both. And this is something that definitely came up in the public input process. But let me also say, even if one wanted to, the location of the Latino community is such that you could not redraw District 6 in order to get that substantial an increase in the Latino percentage. In fact, what you would end up doing is increasing the Asian, because you would have to go up in this direction. You would end up having, you would increase both the Asian percentage and then also take from the Latino percentage, and then potentially District 7 would no longer be a majority minority district. So it's not that, even if one wanted to have the kind of parity that you're talking about, it would be very difficult to do so. There are like very non-contiguous districts one could draw, where you take District 7, you go across the river and get different communities, or you go in across here in Lower Belvedere. But then you run into what we call contiguity problems, right? That then certain districts might not be totally attached to each other. So the long and the short of it is that I don't think you could do what you're suggesting while maintaining 2 majority minority districts, as well as making sure that it wasn't a complete sort of lopsided trade where you would end up with one district. I mean, because in order for District 6 to move up, it would have to lose population somewhere else, right? And whether, you know, in the Upper Highlands and the like.
May I just, you know,
Yeah.
make a quick comment? Okay, I'm looking at the map of both for 6 and 7. The population on the street, I'm looking at Middlesex. So the Middlesex carved down to Brand Street, right?
Yep.
Onto the 6. So if we move up that Brand Street up to the Middlesex Street, or a little bit further, so then you give more Latino population to the District 6, rather than 12.8%, it might bump up to about, you know, like 15% or something like that. You still have majority minority District 6 and 7. I understand. And then the same token, you move the Parker Street down the bottom on the District 6 up a little bit, you know, to maybe A or B Street. So I live in this area, so I sort of know the area a little bit. So you move up that, instead of Parker Street, you move up to either A or B Street, you know, cut it. So this way you distribute almost evenly. So the District 6 will have almost, you know, the same number of Latino. Right now, the District 6 is majority of the minority are Asian, and then you have only 12.8%. So what I'm trying to get at is that, can we increase that Latino population of 12.8 to about 15%, you know, to be close enough? So if I live in District 6 and I want to run for office to represent District 6, and I'm Latino descent, I'm at a disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my thought.
Just so people can understand a little bit about how we do redistricting, let me just show you an example of if we were to do that, and how one can think about this. So right now what I'm doing is I'm adding in census blocks, the ones that you described, so that then this would go up to Middlesex right here. And when I do that, you'll see that I can see what would happen. So just adding that if I just added that, took that population,
Brand Street to Middlesex Street, what you say? Yeah.
So I'm just doing just that would actually be unconstitutional, because what would end up happening is that District 7 now is underpopulated by 5.5%, which is over the 5%. And it would not appreciably change the Latino population all that much, because what it would do actually is increase the Asian population significantly in District 6, and it would actually drop the Asian population in District 7. And so, you know, you would end up, if you just, so you can see, if you want to see what who lives in that particular area, you'll see that this is the change let me see if I can. It would add 68 white citizens, 131 Asian citizens, right, and 27 Latino citizens. So you would actually, the Latino percentage would actually decrease in District 6 if you did that, and the Asian percentage would increase. So that, because it's just not a significant Latino neighborhood.
Okay.
All right, let me go to the next hand. Marty Hogan.
Yes, my question is will you talk about change and these things are going to change? And I came in a few minutes late. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to know when the actual, like the finished version would be put in place, or would it be after the next election? I mean, we're kind of getting into that time period now, so that I'm just wondering how long it will take to do that.
Yeah, so it's a lot is up in the air with the census because of the Trump administration and all kinds of controversy surrounding the census. I expect that we will have the new census data for Lowell by May. Hopefully it will be by April. And my goal here is to get a sense from you all about if there are minor changes that could be made, then I might be able to do that even now. But that to give some guidance about the types of changes that might be made once we get the new census data. So I will turn around the plan within a week or two once we have the new census data. I will do it as quickly as I can. If we have sort of a basic framework in mind like we've got now, because then I can shift it. Now, if it turns out there's been massive changes in the population in Lowell, which I don't expect because I've been looking at it, over time, then maybe there's more that would need to be done. But that is why I wanted the community to hear that the way I'm thinking about the changes, if I had to guess right now so that you can sort of manage your expectations, the kinds of changes that I would expect is District 5 to take in a little bit more of this precinct in South Lowell. District 6 and 8 to go toward the highway here, the connector. And then depending on what happens in the relative growth of population, this would either, contract or expand depending on what happens in population growth with Pawtucketville. So I do think that we would have an answer by April, May, and that's certainly my goal.
Because I know many people are looking at the next council race, and it's going to be quite, I mean, I know there's time over the summer, but that's going to be quite a change.
Right. No, it will be. And I mean, one thing that I hope is that if we get the framework set after this meeting, that will, then basically those will be the districts that will be in place. And then I will make changes simply to deal with population changes, right? So that generally speaking, this will be the framework that will be used to guide the final map. Okay.
Good job. Great work.
Thank you. I want to make sure because some people's hands are still up, but I believe Hillary Clark, have you spoken yet?
Thank you. Thanks for this work. So I'm curious, I'm a school committee member, and I'm curious how the districts will be combined for the district school committee and makes that decision. Thank you.
So that is something about which I would also like to get feedback. In general, here is the way, in order to preserve contiguity, right, which is to say that that the districts are connected to each other. Here is the way that I have been thinking about it. If districts 1 and 2 were connected, I would have maybe put them in the same district, but they're not. And so And I should say that it is possible that we will end up renumbering the districts, but just working with this numbering system. Pursuant to the consent decree, I believe you have to combine 7 and 6 together. Okay. Now once again we run into the question about District 4, but District 4 I would combine with District 2. 1 and 8 I would also combine together, which leaves 5 and 3 together. So just to review: 2 and 4, 1 and 8, 6 and 7, 5 and 3 are the ways I think to do it. If this is the map, right, or something like this, I think there have been some other suggestions. The plaintiffs have made some suggestions joining 4 and 5, but for example, that I think creates a very long district that ends up bisecting, right? Basically goes from the southernmost point of the district to the northernmost. Similarly, 1 and 4 creates a very long district that goes from the northwest all the way to center. So I think 2 and 4 together is what I would recommend. 3 and 5, 6 and 7, and 1 and 8. But this is also something, and it doesn't need to be done here, that I would be eager to get feedback from people if there are different views on this. Patty Kerwin.
Hi, everybody. I have a couple of questions, actually. Hillary just asked one of my questions, so thank you. But you didn't answer who's going to make the decision on that.
I will make the decision.
You will. And then the council would vote on it. Is that correct?
The way that this works, and I maybe should have explained this at the front end, is that I have been, the part of the consent decree basically, appoints a neutral party who is neither the council nor the plaintiffs to draw the map. And so that's me. And so I'm the one who is the one who will get the slings and arrows from everyone here. But part of the point of getting all of the feedback is to be informed about some of these trade-offs. And so the council does not actually play a role in voting on this plan. They can vote on it and they can make recommendations which might lead to a vote. But the way that the consent decree works is that I'm entrusted to put out the plan. But I will, this issue of the school districts is not one that I've talked about with the council yet. And I will talk with them about it and talk more in depth with the plaintiffs as well as anybody in the community who is interested in offering feedback. But that, yeah, it doesn't require a vote of the council.
Okay. My other question now is, what's the thinking? Why would you combine the two majority minority districts together?
Because that's a good question. And it's because that is what the consent decree in effect would require, because otherwise you will end up with no majority minority school districts.
Okay. All right.
It's only because you're basically taking two districts that are themselves over 50% and then putting them together into a larger district, which will then be over 50%, that then you can deal with the voting rights issues that gave rise to the litigation here. If you were to take one of the majority minority districts and combine it with one of the other districts, then you would end up with no majority minority districts in the plan and in the school.
Understand. But then really the balance of the school committee could still be off and weighted more heavily to the majority in actuality, correct?
Well, that's going to be true no matter what. You're going to have three of the 4 districts will be majority white. There may be. Let me put it this way: we've been talking majority minority because it's a easy way to describe this. But what gave rise to these districts was a joint lawsuit between Latino and Asian voters in Lowell. The districts, the city council districts as drawn have a district that is almost all, one that's almost completely majority Asian, and another one which is coalition, Asian and Latino. I gave the numbers there before.
Right.
If we did something where, for example, you join 6 and 8, let me just show you the screen again.
Mm.
Which would not, you know, if you join the Lower Highlands and Highlands together, right, that would end up being sort of joining what would be a 60% white district, which with a 34% white district, which would end up creating a district that would end up being roughly 40, which would end up being, you know, a little bit over 50% white. And so you can't satisfy the consent decree unless you were to join these districts together, because otherwise you can't join any other two districts in this plan, and then to have a coalition district where Latinos and Asians would be a majority.
Are you able to identify the next highest population of Latinx in which district? Because I know, for example, in Lower Belvedere, there tends to be a larger Latinx population.
And there is, but the District 3 as constructed is actually, you know, one of the lowest minority populations. It's only 9.4% Latino.
Is there any other district that has a much higher number?
So District 5 is almost 17.5% Latino. And that's because, and that is something that could increase, but it's still relatively, you know, low. And the challenge in redistricting with respect to Latino population in Lowell is the dispersal of it, right? So that there are Latino communities here, and here. And so you can't, you know, it's very hard to then draw districts that would group everyone together.
Can I just ask one more? Well, two things. I think you should renumber the districts to really pair better maybe with some of the wards so people would be less confused. That's my suggestion.
I think that we will do. Part of this was to reflect some of the plaintiff's proposals and how the numbering you know, was based off of other plans that had come in. And so I do think, especially if we end up combining the city council districts, this may be District 2, maybe District 1, and District 4, maybe District 2.
All right, and then, so there's a lot of issues around the South Lowell, Belvedere delineation. I mean, I would say, I've been here my whole life, that Boylston Street and all up into the bridge, that was always part of Ward 1, actually. But my objection is you have a little Stratham Street, which is a dead end, and that's always been South Lowell. And it's thrown into Belvedere, and there's like 11 homes on that street.
That's right.
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, they identify as South Lowell and always have.
Yeah.
So I object to that.
I agree with that critique. And it's only because one thing you'll notice is that District 3 is 4.77% underpopulated according to the 2010 census. And so you cannot legally move this, what is this orange line, this border here, up anywhere in order to get any more population in here. In the event that the census comes out and there is enough population in District 3 that can be essentially transferred over to District 5 so that more of this area of South Lowell could then be united in here, then I will do that. And that really is contingent on the new census data. But yes, no, this is the one sort of jagged edge in the plan that is troubling, but it's really just legally required.
And there's nowhere else you could grab that number? It just is unfortunate. It's just so silly.
Well, the problem is that then you'll see that then the question is, it sort of opens up this issue, how one treats Lower Belvedere, how one treats South Lowell, that has huge ripple effects throughout the plan. So that if one other iteration of the map that I considered was, instead of crossing over here in District 4. Suppose you take you take Belvedere and go into Centralville, right? And you go all the way up into here. You could put Lowell in with Sacred Heart. You could do other things with Lower Belvedere, but then in the public input on that there was real concern that that when you cross the river here, you're joining two very, very different communities together, as well as breaching, you're going over the river to do so, right? And dividing up Centralville. So,
well, those people on the very, very, very far end of number 4, up by Highland Street, they're not happy. Because there's no relationship.
Up here, you're saying?
No, down by Belvedere and 5 would be Highland Avenue. I think it used to be Ward 10.
Oh, in District 4 and District 3?
No, in District 4. I mean, I've heard people say there's no like affinity that far. It's just the weird delineation of that district.
In this, yes. Well, no, that's with all of District 4. Yes, no, I understand that.
I mean, couldn't you move some of that 4 over to 3, maybe? I don't know. That end that's closer to 3.
Right. Well, all I can say is that I've gotten feedback from different folks that then just opens up. But again, if people have suggestions, I encourage them to submit it about where we could go with this. All right, let me unshare my screen here. Was someone drawing? I just saw that there was some red marks on there. I don't know whether others were able to draw on that. Dominic Lay. I can't hear you. Even though it says you're unmuted, but I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
So I'm just trying to understand what you were trying to explain to Patty earlier. That so you work with somebody to draw this line. I mean, how did you come up with these lines?
For which, just in general, or for any particular?
In general, sure, in general. And I'm just listening to what you explained to her, that you work with somebody to come up with this, and it will create more issues if you change it. So why would that be? And with all the lines, so I'm just trying to understand how you start, how you begin the starting point, and how you ended up with this kind of drawing.
So we had the plaintiffs made a submission, and 2 submissions actually, and that was in addition to a public. There were several public submissions, and so we started with that. Then had conversations with the city council, and then also again with the plaintiffs. And so that most of the consideration, and then have had some public input that has come through the web portal. So that's where I'm deriving some of those
The controversial point where Patty was talking earlier, was that the decision that made by the city council or by the plaintiff?
I'm not, so no one, so I will take responsibility for the map, because ultimately the responsibility will leave with me. I will say that the original plaintiff submission, which they altered in a subsequent submission with some of the lines here, but the original plaintiff submission did have this border in here. And that's the one you're discussing, right? Going along the river?
The point where Patty was talking about earlier, that the controversial, that where Belvedere start or South Lowell, and that's, I think that's
yes. This area here, you mean?
No, yeah, that around that area where Patty was asking you earlier.
Yes. So good. This area, this was, based on discussions with the city. Again, the original plaintiff's map had something like this as well. And then the city council also was of the view that South Lowell and Sacred Heart together made sense.
To that line, the city council made.
No, I want to be clear. The city council is just as upset as all of you are, and I am, with this line. The problem is that the Constitution requires it, because there's no way that assuming we keep the other features of the district together, District 3 is going to, you cannot take more population away from District 3 without it falling below 5%. However, if, like I said, if there is additional population that is revealed in the 2020 census, then I will be able to join together this entire precinct.
So how many houses are there? I mean, how many number of voters that would be in trouble if you were to move what people expected? Say, let's do it now. Let's say if you move it the way.
So how many people live just in this area here, that area?
Yeah.
So that's a total of. Let me find my. Oh, here it is. Okay. That's a total of 238 people.
And that cannot be compensated from another district. Instead of making that zigzag maps, you couldn't just make that smooth like that, and then find another spot in another area to make up 200.
So
votes.
if one were to do that, there's only two other places. Two or three places, right? Either you cross the river, right here, or you cross the river here, right? Or maybe over here, or something like this. And the question is, should you, and we considered, or I discussed this with various folks, and the decision was to follow, my decision was to follow the bodies of water here, so that there's only one traversal of the river here, and then to follow the sort of canals and everything going this way.
Okay, so
however, this is exactly this issue. So part of what I'm hoping is that the census, the new census data, will reveal enough population that that issue will be resolved on its own without any trade-offs. If there is a trade-off, I'm eager to get feedback from the community about how that trade-off should be satisfied. I can tell you that if one were, for example, to go in this direction, that then there is a community here, or this is my hypothesis, is that this community might not be so thrilled to be in with all of Upper Belvedere, right? Or or Belvedere, right? You could do the same thing in downtown over here, but then that in some ways repeats the same kind of problem. And so my hope is that this will be a problem that will be addressed with the new census. If not, I'm eager to get feedback on where you might push and pull in order to compensate for that population.
May I ask what the
Actually,
population now?
Apologies. May I just interrupt for a second? We have the Spanish language session starting in a few minutes, so we could wrap this one up. That would be great.
So I'm just curious if with this map, what is the population on District 3 and 5 at this point, if you leave it like that?
What if you make the change or without the change?
If you make the change like right now, what are the population on District 5 and District 3?
So you'll see that this would be the deviation. So the population would end up, so you'd move 238 people, and District 3 would now only have 12,442 people, whereas, which is over, close to 1,000 people short of the ideal. And you can see 6.56% too low. All right.
Okay, thank you.
So now, Carrie, do we move into?
Yes. Yes. So so now starting at 6:30, we're doing the same session except translating back and forth into Spanish. So I need to
Thank you, Carrie.
unmute. Sure, I need to unmute our
I
translator.
unmute myself.
And so obviously everyone's welcome to stick around and brush up on your Spanish. And for anyone who's wondering, so this will go from 6:30 to 7:30, and then the last hour from 7:30 to 8:30 will be translated into Khmer.
Ya voy a empezar, no puedo. Déjemelo ahí, yo como ahorita. Porque yo tengo que trabajar, no puedo estar comiendo y trabajando.
Carrie, would you like me to start now again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Bienvenidos.
Excuse me, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I am supposed to be the Spanish interpreter, so how are we going to work this? Is it going to be simultaneously translated, or how are we going to do this?
I think the best way to do it is we'll try to speak slowly and then pause, and then you can translate for those who are listening in Spanish and vice versa. Does that make sense?
That works for me.
Okay.
My Spanish is rusty. I could try, but I think it's best if we proceed.
And the folks from the lawyers committee also want to speak, and their speaker, unlike me, can give his remarks in Spanish.
Okay.
So they'll be the same remarks as were during the English session. Just.
And do you want to introduce, or should I start?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and start?
Okay.
I will.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nate Pursley. I'm a law professor at Stanford University and also a redistricting expert who has been appointed in this case.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Nate Persley, soy un profesor de la Universidad de Stanford y he sido designado para hacer los distritos de Lowell. Soy un abogado también.
And I will, what we're going to do here today is describe the plan that has been drawn to deal with the city council districts pursuant to the court decree.
Y lo que vamos a hacer esta noche es vamos a mostrarles el plan que ha sido diseñado para los diferentes distritos de la ciudad de Lowell, para los consejeros de la ciudad.
We will first hear from the plaintiffs who brought the case and who have been intimately involved in the redistricting process.
Primero vamos a escuchar a las personas que trajeron este caso a la ciudad de Lowell y que han trabajado con nosotros para hacer este proceso.
And then I will explain the plan and discuss the principles that guided it.
Y más tarde discutiremos el plan y vamos a hablar de los principios que nos llevaron a hacer este plan.
And then I'm eager to then get your feedback on potential revisions to the plan or other principles that should be considered.
Queremos que ustedes, después de hacer la presentación, nos den sus opiniones para ver cómo podemos mejorar el plan o cómo podremos cambiarlo.
So now I think we'll turn it over to the plaintiffs who have some introductory remarks.
Ahora vamos a escuchar a las personas que trajeron esta denuncia a la ciudad de Lowell.
Muchas gracias. Me llamo Jake Lebovic y trabajo para los abogados por los derechos civiles. Junto con el bufete de abogados Ropes y Gray, los abogados por los derechos civiles han tenido el honor y el privilegio de representar a los demandantes en la demanda de derechos civiles, derechos al voto, que llevó a cabo a los cambios que estamos discutiendo esta noche. Desde el comienzo de este litigio.
Oh, sorry. Wait, Jake. Should I translate what
Oh,
Jake?
no, I mean,
Yes.
Or you don't need to do that.
No, I think because it's the same that was in English during the previous session.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Okay,
just
sorry. I didn't
take it
know
away,
if
Jake.
you need to
Oh,
do it
that's
both ways. Sorry.
sure.
Not
okay.
a problem. Desde el comienzo de este litigio, uno de los temas más importantes para los demandantes fue asegurarse de que los residentes de LOL y en particular sus comunidades de color tuvieran voz en el nuevo sistema electoral que reemplazara el antiguo e injusto sistema en general. Es por eso que el acuerdo que finalmente llegamos con la ciudad les dio a los residentes la oportunidad de opinar en las urnas sobre cuál sistema debería adoptarse. Y una vez que los residentes dejaron en claro su preferencia por un sistema basado en distritos, es por eso que el acuerdo exige que este proceso abierto era inclusivo para trazar las líneas del distrito. Los demandantes quieren agradecerle, Dr. Persili, por su arduo trabajo en esta fase del acuerdo. De todas las cuestiones que los demandantes y los demandados han enfrentado para formar un acuerdo durante ese litigio, su elección como experto independiente fue probablemente lo más fácil. Su profunda experiencia fue evidente para todos nosotros, incluso antes de que lo contrataran. Y desde entonces hemos seguido apreciando su receptividad sobre el proceso y a la retroalimentación. Como saben, los demandantes presentaron un mapa para su consideración a través del portal en línea de la ciudad. Sabemos que también recibió comentarios de la ciudad y de miembros del público. Para el mapa de la comunidad que presentaron los demandantes, nuestro objetivo era reflejar la aportación más amplia posible, en particular de las comunidades de color de lobo. Para hacer eso, recogimos la opinión de la comunidad en asociación con agencias locales claves, incluida la Cambodia Mutual Assistance Association, Lowell Alliance y la Next Community Center for Empowerment. También fue importante para nosotros involucrar no solo a los residentes latinos y asiáticos, sino también a la comunidad negra y otras comunidades de color. Estamos agradecidos de que muchos líderes de la comunidad, incluida Stacey Thompson y Mona Tyree, se pusieron al frente para ayudar en ese esfuerzo. Juntos, nuestra coalición llevó a cabo numerosas sesiones de educación en varios idiomas durante el verano y el otoño, a través de encuestas en línea, reuniones de grupos grandes y grupos de discusión pequeños. Reunimos toda la información que pudimos sobre dónde la comunidad pensaba que las líneas del distrito deberían trazarse y compilamos todo eso en el mapa que le enviamos. Nos complació mucho ver que muchos de los elementos clave que incluimos en el mapa de nuestra comunidad se reflejan en su mapa preliminar. Desde nuestra perspectiva, su mapa equilibra bien los intereses en competencia, preserva los vecindarios existentes y sigue las líneas naturales donde sea posible, mantiene unidas a las comunidades de interés y, por supuesto, cumple con los requisitos del decreto de consentimiento que se diseñó para brindar igualdad de oportunidades de voto para las comunidades de color del lobo. Esperamos escuchar los comentarios que recibirá esta noche y futuras revisiones de su mapa, incluso después de que se publiquen los datos del censo 2020. Por ahora, solo queremos agradecerles por el cuidado y la atención que han prestado al proceso y por este excelente punto de partida que considerará claramente los comentarios de la comunidad. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, okay. I'm going to share my screen so we can discuss the contours of the plan.
Entonces ahora él va a compartir su pantalla para que miremos el plan.
As a beginning principle, it's important to understand that there are certain legal requirements that affect the drawing of this map.
Yo quisiera preguntarle, I would like to ask you if we need the Spanish interpreting, because I can see from the participants that most of them are English speakers. So I would love to do the interpreting, but if we don't need it, I don't know, it's up to you guys. Because from what I see, most of the people here speak English, so instead of me interrupting you and doing it, I don't know, it's up to you guys. So If somebody in the group needs interpreting, let me know. But if not, I don't know. It's up to you guys.
I'm following the agreement between the plaintiffs and the city here.
Okay.
Do either of them want to weigh in on this issue?
I mean, Luce, you know the folks on the Zoom better than I would. If you think that that's okay, and then we'll just do interpretation for questions, that's fine. How about, why don't you ask if anyone would like simultaneous interpretation to hit the hand raise so that we know that now.
Ok, si alguien quiere que sigamos la parte de interpretación en español, por favor, levanten la manito que hay en la parte de los participantes. Hay un icono que ustedes pueden levantar la mano si quieren que lo sigamos haciendo en inglés y en español.
Sí. Hay dos o tres que necesitan.
Okay, so I'll keep on doing.
Okay. So let me share my screen one more time. And I wanted to emphasize that there are legal constraints on the plan. In particular, that each district must be of roughly equal population, and that
Este mapa tiene partes legales y que tienen que hacerse de acuerdo con la parte legal para que haya una distribución igual entre los distritos.
And in addition to that, they need to be equal. Then we also have a requirement from the court in this case that that there be two majority-minority districts made up of a majority of the citizen voting population being Asian and Latino.
Y fuera de que debe haber una igualdad entre los distritos, debe haber dos distritos que deben tener la mayoría de la minoría de los participantes, o sea, que haya mayoría de hispanos en este distrito y que haya mayoría de camboyanos en este distrito.
Besides those legal requirements, there are redistricting factors that are often taken into consideration in constructing a redistricting plan.
Y fuera de la parte legal que hay que tener en consideración, también hay otros factores que hay que tener en cuenta para poder hacer volver a distribuir los distritos.
Sí. And the plan, as you can see on the screen, is guided by the neighborhoods of Lowell.
Y el plan, como ustedes pueden ver en el mapa, es guiado por los vecindarios que hay en las diferentes partes de Lowell.
Okay. Yo voy a tratar de explicar en español solamente los barrios aquí. En el primer distrito es Pawtucketville, 2 es Centralville, 8 es Highlands, 7 es Acre, y esos barrios son, la población de esos barrios es demasiado, hay muchas personas en esos 4 barrios, mayor de la población ideal por un distrito. What I wanted to say is that these neighborhoods, Centralville, Pawtucketville, Acre, and Highlands, have populations that are larger than a single district.
Lo que él quiere decir es que en los distritos 7, 6, 8 y 1 hay más personas de distintas partes que en los otros vecindarios, en los otros distritos.
You'll notice that not every neighborhood or community gets its own district. Some communities are too big and would be more than one district, and some communities are small and then need to be stitched together.
Hay unas comunidades que están más grandes y hay otras que están más pequeñas pero entonces tratamos de ponerlos juntos para poder hacer los distritos iguales.
So in addition to these districts, 1, 8, and 2 that are, and 7 that are sort of defined by those particular neighborhoods,
además de los distritos 1, 2 y 7, que son los que están particularmente en estos vecindarios,
you have District 6 and District 7, which are the districts that are majority minority. District 6 is almost 50% Asian. District 7 is 50% Asian plus Latino.
So, en los distritos 6, la mayoría, más del 50%, son asiáticos. Y en el distrito 7, el 50% está entre latinos y asiáticos.
Right. One of the most important decisions in doing a redistricting plan for Lowell is where you cross the river.
Una de las decisiones más importantes de cómo hacer los distritos en Lowell es por dónde vamos a cruzar el río.
And you know, as you look at the plan, that one of the district that jumps out is District 4 because it connects parts of Centralville and Pawtucketville with parts of downtown.
Y uno de los distritos que ustedes ven que resalta más es el distrito número 4, que conecta partes de Centralville con Pawtucketville y con el centro de Lowell.
But one needs to make a decision about where to draw the lines for Lowell, where to cross the river, and that has a lot of effects on the locations of the other districts. And so
hay que tomar la decisión de dónde es que vamos a trazar la línea, porque esto va a influenciar cómo van a ser distribuidos los distritos.
And here, because of the decision to cross in this location allows there to be one Centralville district, one Pawtucketville district, and then the border is District 4.
Entonces, en la forma en que hicimos este distrito es porque va a haber un distrito para Centralville, va a haber otro distrito para Pawtucketville, entonces este es el distrito número 4.
And otherwise, you know, the District 5 is the Sacred Heart area and most of South Lowell.
Y el distrito número 5 es el distrito de Sacred Heart, del Sagrado Corazón, yo no sé si le dicen así en inglés, y del sur de Lowell, una parte del sur de Lowell.
And District 3 is the Belvedere and Lower Belvedere.
Y el distrito número 3 es Belvedere y la parte baja de Belvedere.
One thing I want to emphasize is that there will be changes that will need to be made in order to deal with changes revealed in the new census.
Una cosa que quiero enfatizar es que va a haber cambios una vez tengamos los resultados del censo que se hizo este año.
And several changes may need to be made. One of them that I would make is to try to move this line in South Lowell up to get more to this precinct from District 3 to unite that precinct.
Uno de los cambios que se va a hacer es mover la línea en el distrito número 3 del sur de Lowell, dependiendo de los cambios que haya.
In addition, if District 6 and District 8 do not have enough population, I would expect them to move east to the highway.
Si el distrito 6 y el distrito 8 no tienen lo suficiente número de personas, entonces el distrito 6 se va a mover un poquito hacia estos dos distritos se van a mover un poquito hacia el este a la parte del río.
Yeah. And depending on rates of population growth, the border here in Centralville or in Pawtucketville may change.
Y también dependiendo de cuántas personas, el cambio en el número de personas, Entonces los distritos número 1 y el distrito número 4 también se va a cambiar un poquito las líneas.
And with that, I'll open it up for questions from the audience. And please raise your hand and I will call on you.
Y con esto ustedes pueden hacer preguntas ahora, pueden levantar su mano en el icono de participantes y les vamos a dar la palabra para que hagan sus preguntas.
Vladimir Saldana.
No, that was a mistake. That was from the question earlier.
Okay. Diego Leonardo. Oh, Diego Leonardo took his hand down. Miley Brito.
Hi. So thank you for hosting this session, first off. So I have a concern about, I believe it's District 3. So in Lower Belvedere.
Por favor.
¿Qué?
No, un momento para
Okay.
para hacerlo
Sí, perdón,
en
perdón.
español.
Bayless, if you want to ask the question in Spanish, I will probably be able to answer it in Spanish. Well, understand it, and then I can do it in English. I'm just have a little more difficulty speaking than I do listening.
Okay. Or I can ask it in both languages if it's easier.
Whatever. Okay.
Okay. So just so you understand it maybe more clearly. So my question pertains to District 3. And so what I'm concerned about is essentially Nesmith Street down. That neighborhood is very Hispanic culturally, and I think that it being morphed with the rest of Belvedere could dilute sort of the effect of those voters. So I'm just wondering if it would be possible for those voters or for that section to be maybe morphed with another neighborhood that more accurately reflects its same demographic, just because, I mean, across Nesmith Street, it really is a different world demographically and culturally. And so I just don't want those voters to have their voices diluted.
Good. Well, so do you want to say it in Spanish?
I can say it in Spanish.
Yeah.
Entonces, mi pregunta es, en el Distrito 3, en la calle Nesmith y para abajo, ese vecindario tiene una grande población hispana, pero el resto de Belvedere tiene una población que no es hispana, y mi preocupación es que los votos de las personas en ese distrito van a ser disminuidos cuando están contados con ese mismo vecindario de Belvedere. Y yo quisiera saber si es posible que ese pedacito sea puesto con otro vecindario que quizás refleje más la población.
So the problem you identify is one that I have struggled with, and it reflects the changes that were made in the first plaintiff's plan with the second plaintiff's plan. You want to translate, Luz? Or you want to translate that or no?
Okay, so can you say it again, because
Yeah.
I was reading the thing and I'm sorry.
The issue that you have described is one that I have struggled with, and it is also reflected in the two plans that the plaintiffs have submitted.
Esta parte que usted ha comentado es una parte que él también tuvo problemas cuando se inició este proceso. Entonces esto se va a, tienen que hablar acerca de esto.
And I just want to make sure that the basic question that you are asking is, where should Lower Belvedere go? Is that fair?
Entonces la parte básica es hasta dónde el Belvedere iría, que eso es lo que ustedes quieren.
Is that fair? Miles?
Por eso es lo que están de acuerdo con que esto sea así, o es justo lo que esta línea esté ahí.
Oh, I have to unmute her 1 second. Let's see. Melis, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, essentially my question is Lower Belvedere, where can it go where it's not going to be diluted, just because it really doesn't fit in with the rest of Belvedere. So
right.
I just want to make sure that, that little piece, that those people are still having their voices heard. Entonces, lo que yo dije es que la pregunta es, ¿de qué manera se puede acomodar Lower Belvedere para que ellos tengan sus voces oídas y que no estén junto con el resto de Belvedere porque las poblaciones son totalmente distintas.
So the basic problem, not to put too fine a point on it, is that no one wants to be with Belvedere. That there is a problem, and that's true with Lower Belvedere, and that's true with South Lowell. And unless,
Perdón, el problema que hay aquí es que nadie quiere estar con Belvedere. Entonces hay este problema con el Lower Belvedere y con ¿cuál es la otra parte? What is the other
South
part?
Lowell.
Y la parte del sur de Lowell.
And so that is the trade-off one makes. One of the consequences of crossing the river here, as opposed to say joining Belvedere with Centralville, is that you create this trade-off between Lower Belvedere and South Lowell.
Y uno de los problemas que hay en hacer esta línea donde la están haciendo es que va a haber un problema con la parte este de Belvedere y el sur de Lowell.
If it is possible, once the new census data comes out, to both join South Lowell into District 5 and Lower Belvedere into District 4, I would definitely do that, but I don't think there's been that level of population growth.
Y si vemos cambios en el censo de acuerdo a cómo crezca la población en el censo del 2020, entonces se va a unir la parte del sur de Lowell al distrito 5 y la parte este de Belvedere al distrito 4, pero dependiendo cómo cambia el número de personas en estas partes.
And so I assume that that from your perspective, the way to place Lower Belvedere is in District 4 as opposed to keeping it in District 3.
Entonces, de acuerdo con la pregunta que usted hizo, es que la parte baja de Belvedere se va a unir al distrito número 4 en vez de estar en el distrito número 3.
And so, if one were to do that, you have to make up the population somewhere else. Either District 3 goes south or it goes north across the river.
Y como hay que distribuir las partes iguales, entonces si hacemos ese cambio, entonces el distrito número 3 se puede ir más abajo del sur de Lowell o puede tomar una parte del Belvedere, del distrito número 2.
Okay. Let me go to the next question. Diego Leonardo, are you back on? Okay.
Yes, I'm right here. Gracias, doctor, por esta información. Yo tengo una pregunta y es más que todo identificada en el centro del mapa. No sé si podría traer otra vez el mapa de vuelta.
Okay. ¿Aquí?
Así es, correcto. Si nos damos cuenta, los distritos 6, 7, 4 y 5 tienen un diseño muy similar a la hora de la división y vecindarios. Mi pregunta es, ¿cómo se hace la identificación clara y qué clase de outreach haría la ciudad para poder identificar qué distrito es pertinente a cada persona que le toca o la residencia que va distribuida en cada distrito y qué clase de información va a estar saliendo fuera, dado el caso de que estos distritos son altamente diversos y los lenguajes históricamente, la ciudad no ha sido muy responsable en términos de dar el lenguaje adecuado.
Okay. Well, let me explain this border here and why it ends up where it is.
Déjeme explicarle ahorita esta parte que está bordeando y les voy a explicar por qué lo hicimos ahí.
The plaintiffs submitted these majority-minority districts, which solve the legal problem identified by the court.
Los demandantes fueron los que establecieron estos dos distritos, el 7 y el 6, donde la mayoría eran personas que pertenecen a la minoría. La mayoría de las personas pertenecen a la minoría.
once you have that as a barrier here, and then if you keep Belvedere and Lower Belvedere together, right, then this is basically where the line is drawn in order to deal with, to make sure that the population is equal between the districts.
Entonces, para que el número de personas sean iguales en los distritos, entonces tendríamos que unir el Belvedere y el Lower Belvedere.
But this is exactly, if you have some feedback on what might be another way to draw this boundary here, I would be very eager to hear it. Basically,
si ustedes tienen algún comentario de dónde debo hacer esta división, a mí me encantaría que ustedes hagan ese comentario.
Basically what happened here is that this is the smoothest line that one can draw, and then basically make sure that these are roughly equal numbers of people in 4 and 5.
Entonces, lo que hacemos con esta línea de división es lo mejor que se puede hacer para poder tener así un número más igual entre los distritos 4 y 5.
There is another, so the one thing I want to prepare you for, it is possible that if with the new census numbers comes out, that District 6 will take over this area that currently is occupied by District 5.
Entonces, una vez que tengamos los resultados del censo, es muy posible que el distrito 6 se extienda hasta donde está más o menos la línea anaranjadita del distrito número 5.
But I would like to get your ideas about what you might do, how else might one draw this particular boundary here if you think that doesn't make sense.
Y me gustaría escuchar qué idea tienen ustedes de cómo podríamos trazar esta línea en la parte del sur de Belvedere.
Claro, en sí mi pregunta no es tanto entre las fronteras de los lugares, sino cómo va a ser la distribución equitativa de información, ya que hemos visto que no hay mucho voter turnout en esas áreas, pero cómo van a hacer y legislar para que se pueda ver que los datos correlacionados con este distrito puedan tener ese número de información basada en los lenguajes de las personas que hablan en estos distritos, ya que puede crear confusión de que alguna persona vote en el distrito equivocado, dado que están muy cercanos a esos distritos, 5, 4, 7 y 6.
Sí. I want to make sure I understood that, but what I would say is that the only information that I have about the population, well, let me put it this way, that the census data reveals the race and the citizen voting age population of each of these districts. So that's what these data are.
Ok, los datos que tenemos del censo nos dicen cuántas son las personas que son ciudadanas y que pueden votar en estos distritos y cuál es su raza.
Yeah. And so I have not looked at voter turnout or any registered voter statistics in constructing the map. And that this border is really just a function of when you run out of population here, and it's you have to draw some kind of border here in order to comply with the law.
Yo no tengo toda la información de cómo las personas salen a votar en estos distritos, pero lo que hay que hacer es determinar una línea para poder dividir los distritos.
And so you could, for example, move District 4 down farther in this direction and move District 5 up in this direction. And if something like that makes sense, I would be eager to hear whether you think it does.
Entonces lo que él dice es que el distrito 4 lo pueden bajar un poquito hacia el distrito 5 y el distrito 6 lo pueden, si baja el distrito 4 hacia el distrito 5, entonces la parte de arriba de la naranjadita lo tiene que subir al distrito 4.
Does that answer your question?
¿Y eso le respondo a su pregunta?
Oh,
Diego, el señor le está preguntando que si eso le contesta su pregunta.
Sí, pero no tenía la opción de desmutear. Gracias.
Ok.
Sí responde un poco la pregunta, y más que todo es basado porque los distritos 5 y 3 tienden a diluir el voto de las minorías. Por eso es que mi pregunta viene así como, ¿qué información se les va a brindar? Más que todo para que se pueda tener esa información de los distritos, porque yo sé que históricamente sabemos acerca de los distritos basado en los vecindarios. El Acre está intacto y prácticamente me gusta cómo se ve, pero ya viene a jugarse el punto entre el 8, el 6, que es una división de Lower y Highlands en Highlands, y también la distribución entre South Lower. Por eso era mi pregunta, no tanto en el border tone now, pero sí respondió a lo que le estaba preguntando. Gracias.
okay. One last thing on this is that a lot of one thing I want to emphasize so people understand how much of the plan is determined by the some of the districts that were proposed in the original process. Let me stop there.
Ok, una parte de este mapa y de este plan que estamos haciendo fue basado en los distritos originales que se propusieron al principio de este proceso.
Once you decide to have a district that's fully contained in Pawtucketville, another district that is fully contained in Centralville, and then you have these two majority-minority districts, those are significant constraints on the plan.
Entonces, como estas partes que ya se decidió anteriormente, el distrito de Pawtucketville, el número 1, el distrito del Acre o el distrito de Belvedere, el número 2, el distrito el 7 y el 8 ya estaban definidos, entonces esto nos pone como unas reglas para no poder cambiar mucho esto.
So those, I mean, the remaining, one can make sort of small changes at the edges, right? And we've discussed some of those with respect to, for example, Lower Belvedere. But most of the other factors in the map are what then lead to the shape of, say, District 4 and the boundary here.
Entonces, los límites del distrito 4, entonces por lo que ya estaban los otros distritos organizados, los cambios pueden ser muy pequeños que se pueden hacer en estos distritos.
Okay, let me go to Denise. I don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll ask the question in both English and Spanish. So my question is, what happens in the event that the populations in any given one of the districts deviates more than the 5%? And that question in Spanish is, ¿qué sucede en el caso de que las poblaciones de los distritos se desvíen más del 5%? And then I have a follow-up question as to what is the population in Lower Belvedere? What is that composed of? If you can just show that as far as the Latino and Asian populations in comparison to the white population. Y la segunda pregunta fue, ¿cuál es la población en Lower Belvedere y de qué se compone esa población?
So, generally speaking, the constitutional law for local redistricting is that a district that generally speaking, the districts should not be more or less than 5% from the ideal district population.
Ok, la parte legal de este proceso es que hablando por lo general, no puede haber más de un 5% de diferencia en las personas que están ahí.
And so I would not say that that you cannot deviate from 5%. I will say that then it becomes susceptible to a lawsuit.
Que
And
no
that
quiero decir que no nos podemos desviar del 5%, pero si se hace eso, podremos ser demandados. Podría haber una demanda.
Now on the question of Lower Belvedere, I'll try to do this very quickly, so you can see what the population of Lower Belvedere, depending on how we describe the boundaries of it, what it would look like.
Ok, entonces yo voy a tratar de hacer esto rápidamente para ver la parte del Lower Belvedere y cómo se está distribuido acá.
It's to some extent, it depends on what you consider the boundary. I don't know if it would go that far.
No sabemos si vamos a ir hasta allá dependiendo de los límites.
Would that be, Denise, would that be generally the way you would think about the boundaries, or?
Denise, ¿eso es lo que usted piensa de los límites? ¿De lo que está hablando?
Oh, sorry.
Sure, we can use that for reference. Yep, that's fine.
So just so to give you just a sense of that area is of the total population is roughly 3,000 people, and
En esta parte viven más o menos 3,000 personas.
It is almost evenly, so it's about 1,000 white. The citizen voting age population is 1,000 white U.S. citizens, 422 Latino citizens.
Okay, so es más o menos 1,000 personas blancas, 422 latinos.
And roughly 191 Asian U.S. citizens.
Y 191 asiáticos que son ciudadanos americanos.
But I want to just so we did this quickly, you know, different people may have different views about how one defines the boundaries of Belvedere, right, or Lower Belvedere, of course.
Y hay distintas personas tienen diferentes opiniones de cómo se divide la parte baja de Belvedere.
Okay, does that answer your question? Yeah, okay.
Le contesté su pregunta, Denise.
Elkin Montoya.
Thank you for taking my call. Good job, doctor. It was an excellent job. And I know you're drinking something, but I think you need it after all this meeting. So are you drinking a tonic, I hope?
I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear the question.
The question is this, in relation to, it seemed like this is a moving tiger, that every time the Census Bureau changes, this is all gonna be changed. My question to you is, what will happen if the law passes that kids under 16 can vote? Is that also gonna change?
None of that would make a
You want to
difference.
do the question in Spanish or you want me to translate it?
La pregunta, gracias Luz, muy buen trabajo que está haciendo. La pregunta mía es de que este forma de configuración que tenemos de la ciudad es más que todo llevado por la población en cada distrito. Pero esto parece que está cambiando cada vez que hay censores, cada 10 años, los censos, los números de censo. Entonces, la pregunta es de que si cambiaría la edad de votar, que están planeando bajarla a los 16 años, esto también cambiaría. Entonces, la oportunidad para que el doctor la responda. ¿Me puede responder la pregunta, doctor?
So as I understand, the question is whether any of these changes would be affected by changes in the age of voting. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, no, it doesn't affect any of that because this is, just so we're clear on what the numbers are here, the numbers for one person, one vote purposes are total population.
Okay, esto no va a afectar porque lo que se tiene en cuenta aquí es un voto por cada persona que puede votar.
And so I showed you the citizen voting age population because that is what we look at for Voting Rights Act compliance.
Entonces yo les demostré cuando estaba haciendo la presentación para la edad de las personas que votan, que esta es la parte que interesa a las personas que pueden votar.
But that is based off of a survey that is taken by the census because citizenship is not on the actual census.
Y esto es una encuesta que se hizo porque en el censo no se tuvo en cuenta si las personas eran ciudadanas o no.
So, but I have not seen the registered voter statistics or the actual voter turnout statistics for Lowell.
Pero yo no he visto las estadísticas de las personas que votan en Lowell y de las personas que están registradas para votar en Lowell.
Okay. I think, is there another hand? Hold on, I can't see any. I think that's it.
No, I think Joseph Boyle.
Joseph Boyle is raising
his real hand.
Yeah, his real hand.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was the big thing. First of all, I wanted to say this map is amazing. I can't believe that you managed to make such a neat 8-district map. You vastly exceeded my expectations of what an 8-district map could look like.
Primero que todo, quiero decirle que este mapa es muy bueno, que él no se imaginó que hubiera hecho también las distribuciones de los 8 distritos.
The issue I wanted to bring up was what has already been brought up about Lower Belvedere. I think it's important to combine it in to try to draw a third majority-minority district, if possible. The lawsuit said at least 2, not a total of 2.
Ok, lo que él quiere traer a correlación es la parte que ya se ha traído a relación aquí anteriormente, de que se puede hacer otro distrito con la mayoría de minoría. Yo sé que la demanda exige 2, pero de pronto se podría hacer 3.
And in terms of, and I was just looking it up on census data, and in terms of defining what is Lower Belvedere and looking at its demographics, if you use census tract 3112-400, we end up, the 2010 numbers for that were 41.2% Hispanic, 8.5% Black, 7.8% Asian. And
okay, Joseph, you lost me. Wait, you are going too fast.
I'm sorry, that's much too much. All right, the
numbers
the main
in
point
chat.
is in census tract 31-312-400. It is very much a majority-minority area compared to the blocks that you were picking out one by one.
Okay. Yeah,
That's all I had.
So yes, but it is still obviously a smaller. It can't be its own district, of course, and then the question is, where would you, if you were to do what you suggest, which is to try to make another majority-minority district, you would have to redraw this entire plan. Because
okay, él dice que sí se puede hacer esto, pero si se hace lo que usted está proponiendo, habría que hacer, para hacer el otro tercer distrito, habría que configurar el mapa completamente de nuevo.
And the reason is you would try to draw parts of Lower Belvedere in with these parts of downtown and then also go over the river here.
Entonces, si hace esta parte de la parte baja de Belvedere, entonces para donde van a cruzar el río van a tener que cambiarlo también.
And I'm not even sure in the end that you could actually do it. Certainly not with the citizen voting age population.
Y no estoy seguro de que esto se podría hacer y definitivamente de acuerdo a la edad de los ciudadanos que tienen la edad para votar.
But I would encourage you and others to use the redistricting platform it's on the webpage of the city, District R, which is out of Tufts.
Y yo los animaría para que todos ustedes participen en la plataforma que hay de Lowell, de que hay una plataforma que se llama District. That's the name of the platform, District?
District R, let me see if I can call it up quickly here.
Él la va a buscar ahorita en el internet para darle la información.
If you go to districtr.org,
Can you write it in the chat so that people can see where to look at it?
And this is, I believe, on the city's website. So
Esta está en la página web de la ciudad de Lowell.
And then you can draw districts for 8 city council districts for
Y
Lowell.
ustedes podrían hacer, como jugar con esta plataforma y podrían hacer 8 distritos para los consejeros de la ciudad.
And you can, draw a district, for instance, like this, and then you can.
But I think you have to share your screen because we are.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You can see your screen, but we cannot see.
Yes. So let me show you again. So.
Ahora les va a mostrar porque no estábamos viendo la pantalla de lo que él estaba haciendo.
Districtr.org, and you go in and it'll tell you what the percentages are.
Entonces ustedes van a la página de Lowell y les van a decir los porcentajes que hay de las personas.
And also, but it does not have the citizen voting age population, but you can get a rough idea of what the voting age population is.
No tiene la edad de las personas que pueden votar en Lowell, pero ustedes se pueden hacer una idea de lo que, más o menos, cuántas personas hay en esta parte.
And so so this is what districtr.org looks like. And then you go into Massachusetts and then go
Entonces van ahí, después van a Massachusetts.
Into cities and then 8 city council districts.
Después en ciudades y después 8.
Okay.
8 para los consejeros, los 8 distritos que hay que hacer en Lowell.
All right. I think, is Denise asking to come in again? Yeah.
Denise, ¿puede hacerlo usted ahora?
Yes, I am. I just have one more question, and I'll try to translate as well. So my question is keeping the current neighborhoods intact part of the lawsuit?
No.
Or is there some other reason for the insistence on keeping these neighborhoods intact? So,
That's just a redistricting principle, to sort of try to, you have to draw the district somehow. And so thinking about how the neighborhoods might themselves, that provides a starting point for drawing the districts.
Ok, lo que Denise le hizo la pregunta era que si era de acuerdo a la demanda, las divisiones que se estaban haciendo, y él contestó que no, que es la base de lo que ellos escogieron para hacer la división de los distritos.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
All right, maybe then take a 5-minute break and then we go to
Our Kumai session.
Yeah, right.
Ok, entonces ellos se van a tomar 5 minutos y ya se acabó la sección de español y se van a hacer la otra parte para la parte asiática. Gracias por venir.
Gracias, Luz.
Gracias.
Ok, ok.
Y gracias, Luz.
Con mucho gusto. Chao, chao. Pastor, hace mucho que no lo veía, muchacho.
Greetings, everyone. Let's see. Hi, Carrie, who is our interpreter now?
It's Tavi from CMAA. I think she's, I will, hi. I'll unmute her or attempt to.
Okay, we'll do it the same way that I just did, where I'll say a few sentences and then you'll translate. Is that good?
Yes, that's good.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
And Oren from Lawyers Committee will say their opening remarks in English, and then Tavi, if you could translate, that would be great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Want to welcome everyone to this public meeting to talk about the Lowell Redistricting Plan.
ចាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំមានភាពរីករាយនិងសូមស្វាគមន៍អ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាមកកាន់ចាកិច្ចប្រជុំជាសាធារណៈស្ដីអំពីការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរប្រព័ន្ធបោះឆ្នោតថ្មីនៅទីក្រុង Lowell.
My name is Nate Persley. I'm a law professor at Stanford Law School, and I'm also a redistricting expert who's been employed by courts to draw many different types of plans for states.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅថ្ងៃនេះដែរ Nate Persley គឺជា professor មួយរូបដែលគាត់ផ្នែកច្បាប់តែត្រូវបានជ្រើសតាំងដោយខាងសេរីចាតាំងខាងទីក្រុងដើម្បីមកធ្វើការគូសនៅចាប្រព័ន្ធបោះឆ្នោតថ្មីមួយនេះឬក៏សង្កាត់ថ្មីមួយនេះ
Right now, we'll hear from the plaintiffs who brought the case that led to this redistricting plan, and then I'll explain some of the considerations that led to this plan.
ចាអញ្ចឹងជាដំបូងយើងសូមណែនាំដល់អ្នកដែលគាត់ជាដើមម្ដងនៅក្នុងការប្តឹងឲ្យមានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរមួយនេះឡើងចាមុននឹងគាត់ឈានទៅដល់ការរៀបរាប់ក៏ដូចជាបកស្រាយអំពីការគូសនៅប្រព័ន្ធចាសង្កាត់ថ្មីមួយនេះ
I think I'll introduce Oren Selstrom, who's the lawyer for the plaintiffs.
អញ្ចឹងយើងសូមស្វាគមន៍ដល់ Oren Selstrom ដែលជាមេធាវីឈ្មោះឲ្យដើមម្ដង
My name is Oren Selstrom. As Dr. Persley said, along with the law firm of Ropes and Gray, we've had the honor of representing the plaintiffs in this voting rights lawsuit.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនេះខ្ញុំឈ្មោះ Oren Selstrom ដោយលោក Nate Persley បានលើកឡើងខ្ញុំគឺជាមេធាវីមួយរូបនៃក្រុម Ropes and Gray ហើយក៏មានឱកាសចាឈរឈ្មោះឬក៏តំណាងឲ្យចាដើមម្ដងនៅក្នុងការប្តឹងផ្ដល់តាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងការសូមឲ្យមានការគូសបន្ទាត់សង្កាត់ឡើងវិញនេះផងដែរ
The start of the lawsuit, one of the most important things for plaintiffs was to make sure that Lowell's residents, and particularly communities of color, would get to have a hand in deciding what the new system would look like, which is why we have this open and inclusive process as part of the settlement.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅជាជំហានដំបូងនៃការចាប់ផ្ដើមបណ្ដឹងនេះគឺយើងចង់ធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យប្រជាជនសហគមន៍នៅក្នុងទីក្រុង Lowell ជាពិសេសគឺសហគមន៍ស្បែកពណ៌ដែលធ្វើយ៉ាងណាគឺឲ្យពួកគាត់មានសម្លេងឬក៏មានយោបល់នៅក្នុងការគូសឬក៏ការសម្រេចចិត្តទៅលើប្រព័ន្ធនៃការបោះឆ្នោតឬក៏ប្រព័ន្ធសង្កាត់ថ្មីនៅក្នុងទីក្រុង Lowell នេះដែលនេះគឺជាហេតុផលដែលយើងមានកម្មវិធីនៅថ្ងៃនេះដែរគឺជាឱកាសមួយដើម្បីឲ្យពុកម៉ែបងប្អូនទាំងអស់គ្នាបានបញ្ចេញមតិនិងបានផ្ដល់ជាយោបល់នៅក្នុងឬក៏ដឹងឮនៅក្នុងការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរថ្មីនេះ
A community map to Dr. Persley as part of the process for submitting input about where district lines should be drawn. And our goal in doing that was to get as much community feedback as we could ahead of time to put into that map.
ចាអញ្ចឹង ជាដើម្បីធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យមានចាសម្លេងរបស់ប្រជាជនចូលរួមនៅក្នុងការគូសនៅប្រព័ន្ធសង្កាត់ថ្មីនេះគឺយើងបានបង្កើតឡើងនៅឱកាសជាច្រើនដែលអាចអនុញ្ញាតឲ្យសហគមន៍យើងជាពិសេសគឺសហគមន៍ស្បែកពណ៌ដែលគាត់អាចចាផ្ដល់នៅយោបល់នានាចាតាំងពីមុននឹងការគូសមកម្លេះដើម្បីធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យយើងអាចប្រមូលបានទិន្នន័យដើម្បីផ្ដល់ជូនដល់ទៅលោក Nate Persley នៅក្នុងការគូសផែនទីរបស់គាត់
That we worked in close partnership with key local agencies to get input from the community. Agencies like CMAA, the Lowell Alliance, and the Latinx Community Center for Empowerment.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុងនោះដែរគឺយើងធ្វើការជាមួយនឹងចាដៃគូសហការគោលដែលក្នុងនោះគឺមានដូចជា CMAA Lowell Alliance ក៏ដូចជា Latinx Community Empowerment ដើម្បីចាប្រមូលនៅទិន្នន័យទាំងនោះ
Also important for us to engage not only Latino and Asian residents, but the Black community and other communities of color as well. We're grateful for leaders from those communities, including particularly Stacey Thompson and Mona Tyree, for assisting us with that.
Tavi, you're muted.
Okay. I'm sorry. ចាយើងមិនត្រឹមតែធ្វើការជាមួយនឹង CMAA ក៏ដូចជាសហគមន៍ដែលយើងបានលើកឡើងខាងលើនោះទេយើងក៏មានឱកាសធ្វើការជាមួយនឹងសហគមន៍ស្បែកពណ៌ដទៃទៀតផងដែរដូចជាសហគមន៍ស្បែកខ្មៅដែលក្នុងនោះគឺចានាងខ្ញុំសូមទោសខ្ញុំបានភ្លេចឈ្មោះជនពីរអ្នកដែល Oren បានលើកឡើងប៉ុន្តែគឺគាត់មានមោទនភាពដែលបានចាធ្វើការជាមួយពួកគាត់នៅក្នុងដំណើរការមួយនេះ
Together, our coalition held many multilingual education sessions throughout the summer and fall, conducted surveys, had large and small group meetings to get input that we compiled into the map that we submitted to Dr. Persley.
ចានៅក្នុងនោះដែរគឺនៅកាលពីរដូវក្តៅក៏ដូចជារដូវស្លឹកឈើជ្រុះហ្នឹងគឺយើងបានធ្វើចារៀបចំឡើងនៅកិច្ចការពិភាក្សាជាច្រើនជាក្រុមតូចក៏ដូចជាការធ្វើ survey ឬក៏យើងហៅថាការធ្វើទង់មតិហ្នឹងគឺជាច្រើនហើយជាច្រើនភាសាផងដែរហើយនៅក្នុងនោះគឺយើងបានប្រមូលទិន្នន័យជាច្រើនដើម្បីប្រាប់ជាចាយើងហៅថាផែនទីដើម្បីប្រកល់ជូនទៅដល់លោក Nate Persley.
We're extremely pleased to see that many of the key elements that we put into our community map were reflected in Dr. Persley's map that he has presented this evening.
ហើយយើងមានសេចក្តីសប្បុរសរីករាយមែនទែនដែលយើងបានឃើញរាល់ចាចំណុចគោលជាច្រើនដែលយើងបានលើកឡើងឬក៏ស្នើឡើងនៅក្នុងចាផែនទីសហគមន៍របស់យើងនឹងទៅកាន់លោក Nate Persley នៅក្នុងចាផែនទីដែលគាត់នឹងបង្ហាញយើងនៅល្ងាចនេះ
Look forward to hearing from the community for further feedback this evening. But for now, I want to say thank you to Dr. Persley for his hard work and the care and attention he's given to this process, given us a great starting point to go from here.
ចាអញ្ចឹងមុននឹងយើងផ្ដល់ឱកាសដល់សហគមន៍យើងដែលគាត់នឹងដែលបានចូលរួមនៅថ្ងៃនេះដែរយើងក៏សូមអរគុណដល់លោក Nate Persley ដែលគាត់បានធ្វើការយ៉ាងចាយ៉ាងច្រើននៅក្នុងការធ្វើយ៉ាងណាឲ្យបានចេញជាចាផែនទីសង្កាត់ថ្មីមួយនេះសម្រាប់ពួកយើងទាំងអស់គ្នាហើយជាពិសេសគឺបូកបញ្ចូលនៅចាគំនិតរបស់សហគមន៍យើង
Okay, now I'm going to describe and explain the district map.
អញ្ចឹងឥឡូវនេះខ្ញុំនឹងចារៀបរាប់ក៏ដូចជាពន្យល់ពីគម្រោងនៃចាផែនទីមួយនេះ
It's important to understand that there are two main legal constraints that affect the drawing of the map.
អញ្ចឹងតាមអ្វីដែលគាត់បានធ្វើកន្លងមកគឺយើងឃើញថាមាននៅឧបសគ្គចំនួន2ដែលជាចម្បងដែលនៅក្នុងការគូសរបស់យើងនេះ
The first is that each district must have roughly equal numbers of people.
ចំណុចទី1គឺរាល់សង្កាត់ទាំងអស់គឺត្រូវមានចំនួនប្រជាជនស្មើគ្នា
The ideal population for a district is 13,315 people. 13,300 and what did I just say? 13,315 people.
Okay. ចាជាបើសិនជាយើងមើលទៅតាមចំនួនដែលល្អជាក់ស្ដែងត្រឹមត្រូវគឺក្នុងសង្កាត់មួយគឺត្រូវមានចំនួនប្រជាជន13,315 នាក់
The second legal constraint comes from the court decision or the court agreement that led to this the redrawing of these districts, the drawing of these districts.
ចាមួយវិញទៀតគឺជាចំណុចទី2នៅក្នុងឧបសគ្គដែលយើងគាត់បានលើកឡើងខាងលើគឺជាកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងរបស់ខាងតុលាការដែលនាំមកដល់ការគូសនៅផែនទីថ្មីមួយនេះ
And that is that the court has ordered that there be 2 districts that each have a majority of Asian and Latino citizens of voting age.
ហើយដែលនៅក្នុងកិច្ចព្រមព្រៀងនោះគឺបានលើកឡើងថានៅក្នុងសង្កាត់ទាំងអស់គឺត្រូវមានសង្កាត់2ត្រូវមានប្រជាជនអាស៊ីនិងប្រជាជននៃក្រុមដែលអ្នកគាត់និយាយភាសាអេស្ប៉ាញហ្នឹងច្រើនជាងគេ
A third requirement is that each district must be contiguous, meaning that the district is connected to itself. You can't have different parts of districts disconnected.
ចាចំណុចទី3ហ្នឹងគឺយើងអត់អាចឲ្យសង្កាត់មួយហ្នឹងមានចន្លោះនោះទេគឺសង្កាត់មួយគឺត្រូវនៅជាប់គ្នាចាចង់និយាយថាយើងអត់អាចមានសង្កាត់មួយដែលនៅចន្លោះសង្កាត់2ផ្សេងទៀតទេគឺនៅក្នុងនោះគឺសង្កាត់ត្រូវផ្ដាច់ពីគ្នាត្រូវដាច់ពីគ្នាតែម្ដងចា
Beyond those legal requirements, there are also considerations made to represent neighborhoods and to keep them intact.
ចាមួយវិញទៀតហ្នឹងគឺតកតងជាមួយនឹងការដែលយើងចង់ឲ្យសហគមន៍នីមួយឬក៏សង្កាត់នីមួយហ្នឹងគឺមានតំណាងនៅក្នុងសហគមន៍របស់ពួកគេដែលនេះគឺជាឧបសគ្គមួយផងដែរ
For example, Pawtucketville is larger than any single district. Centralville is also larger than any single district. And so is Acre and the Upper Highlands.
ចាអញ្ចឹងដោយដែលគាត់បានលើកឡើងចាគឺទី1តកតងជាមួយនឹង Pawtucketville, Centralville និង
Upper Highlands
និង Upper Highland ដែលជានិង Acre ដែលជាសហគមន៍ធំ
So each of those neighborhoods has one district inside it.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុងតំបន់ដែលបានលើកឡើងខាងលើដូចជា Pawtucketville, Centralville, Upper Highland ហ្នឹងគឺគាត់មានសង្កាត់មួយដែលតំណាងឲ្យតំបន់របស់គាត់
In addition, there are other districts which are created from 2 or more neighborhoods.
ចាអញ្ចឹងមួយវិញទៀតក៏មានតំបន់ផ្សេងទៀតដែលបង្កើតឡើងដោយសង្កាត់2ឬច្រើនជាងនេះ
For example, District 5 is formed by the Sacred Heart neighborhood and South Lowell.
ឧទាហរណ៍ដូចជានៅក្នុងសង្កាត់លេខ5គឺត្រូវបានបង្កើតឡើងដោយតំបន់2គឺ Sacred Heart និង South Low.
And District 3 is formed by Belvedere and Lower Belvedere.
ហើយសម្រាប់សង្កាត់ទី3វិញគឺត្រូវបានផ្សំឡើងដោយផ្គុំឡើងដោយ Belvedere និង Lower Belvedere.
District 4 is made up of parts of several different neighborhoods.
ហើយសម្រាប់សង្កាត់ទី4វិញគឺត្រូវបានបង្កើតឡើងដោយការដាក់ផ្ដុំគ្នានៅសង្កាត់តូចៗជាច្រើន
And its shape is a function of one of the most important features of any plan for Lowell.
ហើយរូបរាងរបស់សង្កាត់មួយនេះគឺបានតំណាងនៅចំណុចសំខាន់ក៏ដូចជាចំណុចចម្បងមួយនៅក្នុងការគូសផែនទីរបស់ទីក្រុង Lowell នេះ
And that one of the most important decisions that needs to be made in drawing districts in Lowell is to decide where to cross the river.
ហើយចំណុចសំខាន់ឬក៏យើងហៅថាការសម្រេចចិត្តសំខាន់នៅក្នុងការគូសនៅផែនទីមួយនេះគឺយើងត្រូវសម្រេចចិត្តថាតើនៅចំណុចណាដែលយើងគួរឆ្លងកាត់ទឹកចាគឺតែសំទោសគឺ low river គឺ
And in this redistricting plan, the decision to cross the river here is affected by the desire to create one district wholly inside Centralville, one district wholly inside Pawtucketville.
I'm sorry, Doctor. I think I lost you. Can you repeat again?
The District 4 crosses the river and takes in this area because when you do that, then you get one district that is in Centralville and another district which is in Pawtucketville.
ចាអញ្ចឹងនៅក្នុងសម្រាប់សង្កាត់ទី4ហ្នឹងគឺយើងឃើញថាបើសិនជាយើងកំណត់ថាចាចំណុចទន្លេគឺជាខ្សែបន្ទាត់គឺយើងឃើញថានឹងមានតំបន់ខ្លះនឹងត្រូវចូលទៅ Pawtucketville និងតំបន់ខ្លះទៀតត្រូវចូលទៅ Centralville.
And then this area across the river is joined with downtown and back central.
ហើយតំបន់ដែលគាត់បានចង្អុលបង្ហាញនៅលើអេក្រង់ហ្នឹងបើសិនជាយើងកំណត់ថាចំណុចហ្នឹងគឺជាបន្ទាត់នោះនឹងមានតំបន់មួយចំនួនដែលជាកំណត់សម្គាល់ផងដែរនោះគឺតំបន់មួយចំនួនគឺនៅជាប់នឹងdowntown ផងដែរ
And with that, I'll open it up for questions. I want to emphasize that there will be changes that will be made to this map when the new census numbers come out.
ចាអញ្ចឹងក៏គាត់ចង់លើកឡើងផងដែរនៅពេលដែលជំរឿនព័ត៌មានជំរឿនថ្មីត្រូវបានធ្វើមានព័ត៌មានថ្មីចូលមកតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងជំរឿនហ្នឹងគឺនឹងមានការគូសថ្មីផងដែរតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងផែនទីរបស់ទីក្រុង Lowell នេះ
For example, I expect that if population allows it, that this border with District 5 may go up, this border with District 6 may go east, this border of District 8 may also go east.
ចាអញ្ចឹងយើងឃើញថាឧទាហរណ៍ថាបើសិនជាប្រជាជននៅក្នុងជំរឿនឆ្នាំ2020នឹងកើនឡើងគឺយើងឃើញថាតំបន់សំទោសគឺសង្កាត់ទី5ហ្នឹងនឹងអាចគឺខ្សែបន្ទាត់ខណ្ឌចែកហ្នឹងគឺនឹងអាចឡើងទៅលើហើយសម្រាប់លេខ6វិញគឺអាចនឹងគូសទៅខាងកើតបន្តិចហើយដូចគ្នាទៅនឹងទី8គឺត្រូវគូសទៅខាងកើតបន្តិចដូចគ្នា
With that, please just raise your hand if you would like to ask a question. Davi, do you want to translate that? Unmute.
ចាអញ្ចឹងសម្រាប់ពេលនេះគឺគាត់សូមស្នើសុំឲ្យអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាបើសិនជាមានសំណួរអាចសួរគាត់បាន
Are there any questions? Oh, Dominic, is Dominic's hand up? Dominic Lay.
I have to unmute. Can you hear me today now?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Percy, thank you very much for your patience, and I really appreciate it. So I want to take one more peek, one more poke at that location that we talked earlier, the area between South Lowell and the Belvedere. So if we move up to Stratham and Burton, now that I could see the map better, what would that be? Just wanna.
All the way up to here?
Right, because that is South Lowell.
Right. No, I mean, and so, okay, let's just be clear what we're talking about. So,
if we just do one street, not even the whole thing, if that's too much, why don't we just do Burton and to Stratham?
Well, here's what, this is an interesting problem, which is that, here's what happens because of the way the census blocks are drawn, is that when you click on this, do you see that? That entire area then goes in. Okay. And so that's that's only 25 people.
Right, only 25. Right, it's a big area, but it's just a school.
Well, and I believe this is a cemetery, right? As you come up here.
Right. Well, we don't need to go that far. We just want to go to the most minimal.
Well, that's
only 25, right?
Yeah, that's 25 people, but then we're not.
It wouldn't change that much.
Right.
So that's good then. If that's the case, that's pretty good.
Well, but then the district looks like that. It goes up, and then it would look that strange, and then it would split 2 precincts also.
If what happened if you click on that and connecting Epping and Burton to Stratham?
Right. Well, let me say that what might happen is
right, like that.
If you do, because most of this is,
unless someone else have a question, but anyway.
So this right now, this is 266 people. Oh, wait,
well, we don't want to go that far. I mean,
hold on.
Now we're making more difficult to.
Here. Let me just be clear. This is still only 157 people.
Okay.
And if you add that's 395.
Yeah, that yeah.
Right, that's possible.
I just want to add enough to Stratham and Burton and see that's you said only 25. So that should not be a problem, right?
Well, but there has to be a there has to be a principle as to why one would do that. And so here the principle is to unite this precinct, right? To make sure, and so that's what for these 238 people, these are the first to come in.
Yeah, they'll create controversial.
If we just did it
up to Stratham, they used to be South Lowell, and now they're no longer South Lowell.
Yeah. Well, again, the problem is the population. There's a legitimate question as to whether South Lowell should be in with Belvedere or whether it should be in with Sacred Heart. This was the 2 plans that the plaintiffs submitted. One had it one way. The second one, which they advocate for, has South Lowell in with Belvedere. But if South Lowell goes in with Sacred Heart, well then you run into this problem, which is that District 3 does not have enough population, right? And so we can it's not clear to me, for example, why would one go north instead of doing this? If you're thinking about the boundaries of South Lowell, right?
We could actually we could even compensate by moving the lower part, the southern part of that Belvedere, that point, more to the west side. Then you would, if you include Stratum, and then you move this line, okay, and move. Cannot see the street name. You move down further to south.
Here.
A little bit.
Can I make just because it's hard to do this on the fly, let me make a suggestion that if you go into District R, draw a district and submit it and see see whether it can be done. But again, just so everyone understands, I do expect these lines to change based on the census. However, I also, if it's possible to solve this problem with Lower Belvedere, the challenge with Lower Belvedere, if, for example, District 3 has a lot of population, I will try to solve both the South Lowell going into District 5 and Lower Belvedere going into District 4. But I don't think that the population growth in Belvedere has been that high.
Okay. សំទោសបើថាវីណាដែលខ្ញុំនិយាយកាត់យកហ្មងអត់បានឆ្លងកាត់ថាវីឲ្យបកប្រែ Okay, Dr. Presley, when you say submit, is that submitting to you now or submit?
Yeah, that is. Hold on, just a second. There's an open submission process through.
There, I can. It's your Lowell, your vote.
Just why don't you put that in
yeah, I'll put it in the chat. There's an email address to accept submissions from everybody.
And it has a deadline, has to be submitted by a certain date, Carrie?
I mean, we'll take submissions anytime as long as Dr. Persley is actively working on the map. He's happy to hear from the public.
Okay, in a couple of days would be fine, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me also just say something in the effort of transparency, because there have been a lot of mentions in the chat about incumbency and candidate residence and things like that. I do not know where any candidate lives in this, and the decisions about where the lines will be drawn are based on these kinds of neighborhood factors. Now, I know that people can advocate in ways that are pretexts for incumbency related considerations, but in the decisions that I've made in the map thus far, they're guided by the legal factors that I mentioned before, the definitions of neighborhoods, and then also things like the boundaries of the precincts and the wards. And so that will be, what the kinds of decisions I'll make going forward. Are there any other, Boonreath South? Let me see if I can unmute you. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, a little louder though.
Okay, right. Okay, I hope you could hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. My first meeting. So first and foremost, I thank you to the committee that put this to the public, and thank you to Doctor and everyone out here. So the question is that when this process done, who is going to be the final vote to approve the district map that you present? And the second question is related to, I could see the District 5 and other districts is merging in terms of concerning about the zip code. Are we gonna having different zip code as well?
Good. So no, the zip codes will not be affected by this. this is really just for the city council. And on your question about who gets to decide, the answer is I do. That is the process that was agreed to in the consent decree. However, I am consulting with the plaintiff. Well, I'm consulting with the community, with the plaintiffs, and with the city. But ultimately, I will make decisions. And I can tell you that nobody is going to be completely happy with the entire map. But hopefully I can reach some kind of agreement that satisfies most people for most of their concerns. But I'm certain that there's going to be people. This is always what happens whenever I draw maps, is that people have to grit their teeth and say, yeah, that it's pretty good, though it's not exactly what I would have drawn.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope there's no protest, anything like that in the future, right? Because of the mapping. Is there a history of your mapping occur like that? Like people from the community not agree with a certain boundary?
Well, look, people are, and in the process of redistricting is the process of expressing the definitions of communities but within legal constraints. And so part of the problem, as I mentioned at the beginning, is that not every neighborhood can be its own district, just because the neighborhoods are different sizes, and the Constitution requires that we have equal numbers of people so that it ends up leading to some neighborhoods being split. But you just try to do the best you can, and then it gets redrawn in 10 years. And so that's what will happen, and no doubt there'll be lessons learned over time about about the best way to do redistricting in Lowell.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Does Elkin Montoya want to ask another question, or is that from before? I'm trying to unmute you.
I'm sorry. My name is Elkin Montoya. Most of you know of me. I'm involved in the community. I just wanted to, is any way, how did this group and the Latino group knows about the question the previous people have been asked? And what's the answer to those questions? Are we going to have some sort of a minutes of this 3 minutes so that everybody with the question and answer, so everybody can know what question and what was the answers to this meeting, or we're going to have more meetings related to this subject?
So this meeting is being recorded and it's broadcast on LTC. So it'll be available after the fact for anybody who wants to listen to it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, Para Hong.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask that when you talk about the Constitution, is that based on the U.S. Constitution or the state Constitution?
It's the U.S. Constitution and the one person, one vote rule.
Okay, so.
Yeah. And so there's a line of cases that require that the districts be equal, one person, one vote. And generally speaking, what that means for local redistricting is that that you divide the population by the number of districts, and you should avoid districts that exceed the ideal population of a district by more than 5%. So when the new census data come out, if, for example, if there were 800,000 people in Lowell, and 8 districts, there would be 100,000. Obviously there aren't, but well.
Sorry, can I interrupt? So Tavi needs to be able to translate. So if you could just pause.
Sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. Well, first is that the U.S. Constitution requires that the districts be equal. Tavi, do you want to translate that? You're muted. Oh, do I need to? Okay, there you go.
So I know that you have talked a lot of like good stuff before this. I don't know if I should go back to that after Tara's question. I think
Yeah, let's just start with his question, which is
Okay.
that that the U.S. Constitution requires that each district have roughly equal numbers of people.
ចាអញ្ចឹងបាញ់មិញនេះគឺថារ៉ាគាត់បានសួរថាតើការសម្រេចចិត្តនៅក្នុងការគូសបែងចែកសង្កាត់ហ្នឹងគឺអាស្រ័យទៅលើច្បាប់របស់ថ្នាក់រដ្ឋឬក៏ថ្នាក់សហព័ន្ធអញ្ចឹងលោក Nate Persley គាត់បានលើកឡើងថានេះគឺជាច្បាប់របស់សហព័ន្ធដែលបានលើកឡើងថាតំបន់សង្កាត់នីមួយៗគឺត្រូវមានប្រជាជនស្មើគ្នាចំនួនប្រជាជនស្មើ
And if there are 800,000 people in Lowell, each district would have roughly 100,000 people.
ចាអញ្ចឹងឧទាហរណ៍ថាបើសិនជានៅក្នុងទីក្រុង Lowell យើងមានចំនួនប្រជាជន800,000 នាក់អញ្ចឹងបានន័យថានៅក្នុងសង្កាត់មួយហ្នឹងគឺត្រូវមានប្រជាជន100,000 នាក់
Okay, I think that gets at it. Dominic, did you have your hand raised again, or was that from before? From before? Stacy Thompson.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So my question was something that was mentioned in the earlier session, which was about the school committee districts. When is there going to be a follow-up on that component so that people can weigh in, or are you looking for people to weigh in now?
I would like people to weigh in now on how these districts should be combined in order for the school districts. And my proposal right now, just and I'll share it again, because of contiguity and as you start sort of thinking about the districts and what would make the most sense, the one that is really required by the consent decree is that 7 and 6 would have to be joined together because that would create a majority-minority district. Mm-hmm. Then you cannot join 1 and 2 together because they have to be connected. But so therefore 1 and 8, okay. 5 and 3, and 2 and 4 would be the groupings.
Okay. Tavi, can you translate that?
Yes. ចាអញ្ចឹង Stacy Thompson ក៏គាត់មានសំណួរថាតកតងជាមួយនឹងគណៈកម្មាធិការសាលារៀនវិញតើការគូសផែនទីហ្នឹងយ៉ាងណាដែរអញ្ចឹងលោក Nate គាត់បានលើកឡើងថាតំបន់សង្កាត់ទី6និងទី7គឺត្រូវបូកបញ្ចូលគ្នាទី2និងទី4គឺត្រូវបូកបញ្ចូលគ្នាទី1និងទី8ត្រូវបូកបញ្ចូលគ្នានេះខ្ញុំសូមលើកឡើងមកវិញថា6ហើយនិង7ហ្នឹងនៅពេលដែលបញ្ចូលគ្នាគឺคล้ายទៅជាតំបន់សង្កាត់ដែលមានប្រជាជនភាគតិចភាគច្រើនចា
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Dominic, is that you again?
Yes អរគុណ Savvy សូមclaim មួយទេតើគាត់ធ្លាប់ពេលយើងដូរstate rep ណាពីមុនមកណាគាត់អ្នកគូមែនឬក៏អ្នកផ្សេងអ្នកគូ
Okay ខ្ញុំសួរពូគាត់ Okay ពូសួរគាត់តែម្ដងឬក៏
អញ្ចឹងក៏បានDr. Persley, I just have a quick question. I'm just wondering, was that you who draw the line for the last time that we changed the for the state rep in Lowell, or someone else?
No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you.
ចាអញ្ចឹងលោកពូ Dominic គាត់បានសួរថាតើតកតងជាមួយនឹងការគូសចាប់ផែនទីបែងចែកសង្កាត់សម្រាប់តំណាងរាស្ត្ររដ្ឋតំណាងរដ្ឋហ្នឹងគឺតើលោក Nate Persley គាត់អ្នកគូសឬក៏យ៉ាងណាគឺលោក Nate net Pacific ថាមិនមែនគាត់ទេ
Okay. Are there any other questions? Belinda Duran.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Tavi, for translating. I was curious how and maybe this is for Kerry, but how will the city deal with elections given that the state rep and other districts won't overlap with these districts?
We will be figuring that out.
Can I add that
They're on different cycles, so that helps a bit.
Well, Tavi, do you want to translate and then I'll answer?
Yes, yes. អញ្ចឹង Belinda Duran គាត់មានសំណួរសួរថាតើខាងក្រុមការងារគូសប្លង់ហ្នឹងគាត់មានវិធានការយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីដោះស្រាយតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងនៅពេលដែលទីក្រុងបោះឆ្នោតមិននឹងចាខាងការបោះឆ្នោតជ្រើសរើសតំណាងរដ្ឋហ្នឹងតើធ្វើយ៉ាងណាដើម្បីកុំឲ្យមានការជន់គ្នាតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងសង្កាត់នីមួយៗហ្នឹង
Let me also say, just based on my experience, that is not a unique problem. That this happens all over the country. That when you have redistricting like this, you'll end up having districts that don't nest within each other. You want to translate that?
ចាអញ្ចឹងលោក Nate Persley ក៏បានលើកឡើងថាការដែលមានសង្កាត់ជាន់គ្នាតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងការបោះឆ្នោតនៅក្នុងថ្នាក់រដ្ឋក៏ដូចជានៅក្នុងថ្នាក់ទីក្រុងហ្នឹងគឺមិនមែនជាបញ្ហាថ្មីទេគឺរាល់ការគូសប្លង់ថ្មីសម្រាប់ទីក្រុងនីមួយៗហ្នឹងគឺតែងតែជួបប្រទះនៅបញ្ហានេះអញ្ចឹងខាងក្រុមការងារគាត់គឺកំពុងតែស្វែងរកនៅដំណោះស្រាយតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាហ្នឹងដែរ
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll just thank everybody for being part of this process. This was, extremely interesting for me as a professor, as well as someone who's worked on redistricting all over the country. So I appreciate the opportunity.
ចាអញ្ចឹងគាត់សូមអរគុណបើសិនជាយើងអត់មានសំណួរទៀតទេគឺគាត់សូមចាប់នៅកម្មវិធីនៅថ្ងៃនេះផងដែរហើយគាត់ក៏មានសេចក្តីសោមនស្សដែលបានចូលរួមចាដែលបានជ្រើសរើសជាអ្នកគូសនៅប្លង់ថ្មីសម្រាប់ទីក្រុង Lowell នេះ
I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank Dr. Persley for giving us his time.
My pleasure, and continue to offer feedback through the city portal on the website.
And thank you, Tavi, for translating. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I believe this concludes all of our session. Is that right, Gary?
It does. It
all
does.
Right.
So have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.